Dear brothers and sisters in Christian faith and belief of God and His Son Jesus Christ our Lord and Savior, it is some kind of race if not a full-blown fight to control our mind. Being Christian is not mean to be dull and docile to take in the information of surrounding reality how and as come through our senses. They are too many who want us to be simple followers, they are too many that want us to be brainwashed, thinking that we are worthless flock followers and mindless executioners. Being like that is not pleasing God or do not mean following Jesus Christ. The Nazi Joseph Goebbels was intelligent and wise, cleverness given by Satan, who had thousands of year experience, manipulating people, populations, elected people, countries, nations, to him and his cohorts. Sad if you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will eventually believe it, and this was used over and over on us and against us. History, in an effort to promote rebellion in the face of an oppressive British government, Paine offered an account of life in the colonies in which he posed some common sense questions such as what sense does it make for an island to rule over a continent? 'Tis time to part. In pondering the implications of Paine's work, his ideas had great utility for Americans in our present time. For example, what sense does it make for a band of sociopathic serial criminals to rule over a nation of people who expect the rule of law to reign supreme? We all must to be aware and teach each other, our young ones, to be aware of how fake news sites were propagandizing our citizens, and having an extensive background in psychology, to realize the psyops being employed to enslave the minds of fellow citizens. Otherwise the future will be highly distorted, even more that is today, and lies, fake news, fake ideologies, comments, ideas, will erode us, our society more and more. Let's be aware of institutionalized church, the priests with indoctrinated mind and or strong agendas, controlled by Satan and his minions and gangs, with money, powers, exemptions and immunities. Psychological tools of enslavement. We must too be aware of how frighteningly effective the brainwashing and psyops techniques had become. These techniques are insidious, yet amazingly covered. One has to be fully educated in these psychological techniques to recognize the subtleties related to the implementation of these practices against the American public. We have to do our best, trying to educate the American public as to how they are being conditioned and even brainwashed to accept the New World Order and one world governance which is devoid of any Christian principles. Please make the following information go viral. People deserve the opportunity to see how their freedom and quality of life are being diminished because of how the people unknowingly and unquestionably buy into a paradigm designed to enslave them. All enslavement begins in the mind, and knowing how we are enslaved, coupled with a faith-based belief system, can free one's mind to become what God meant for us to become. Here is a very brief summary of these psychological techniques designed to enslave the human mind and spirit. One group think this is a strategy where a fake bandwagon effect is promoted. The strategy works by getting the consumer of mainstream media news to believe that a specific opinion is shared by the majority of the population and that any belief to the contrary is lunacy. The best example of this strategy in recent times consists of the fake news polls which was promoted by the fake mainstream media. These fake polls sent the fake message that Donald Trump had virtually no chance of winning. Every one of these fake polls were proven to be false. To confirmation bias, this concept is analogous to the old Nazi practice that if a lie is repeated often enough, the lie will come to be accepted as the truth. This is the reason that in a 60-minute television program, you may see the same advertisement 6 times. This psychological technique was in evidence in the classic Solomon Asch's lines experiment, where it was proven that people could be coerced into giving an obviously incorrect answer because of subtle peer pressure. This pressure is effective, according to the social science research, about 60% of the time. Also, the Milgram experiment, which followed the Asch experiment, demonstrated that 2/3 of the people would murder a stranger, for no reason based on an authority figure's suggestion, while only using minimal social and non-coercive pressure. This is what we see from the mainstream fake news media every day. We are inundated with the message that Donald Trump is xenophobic, racist, sexist, etc. The independent media, and Donald Trump himself, along with some divine intervention, inoculated enough Americans from this effect in order that Trump won the election. Now, these same techniques are being employed to convince the extreme left to burn down America before Trump can turn America into minority extermination factory reminiscent of Nazi Germany. 3. Learned helplessness. This is the phenomenon whereby Martin Seligman conducted experiments on dogs in which he clearly demonstrated that canines, and of course humans, could be conditioned to believe that their decision-making and personal power can have no impact on their present circumstances. The strategy seeks to turn the nation into a collection of Stepford wives in which blind obedience is conditioned and the loss of internal decision-making, i.e. internal locus of control, is eliminated. The incessant message from the fake mainstream media was that Donald Trump had no chance to get elected, so why bother even trying to change the inevitable? 4. Cognitive dissonance. In the face of contradictory facts in which one's worldview, i.e. paradigm, is challenged, the person's ultimate psychological safety weapon, denial, takes over. The person stubbornly holds to old belief system in the face of uncompromising and substantiated facts to the contrary. During the recent election campaign, I would ask people the following question: how could you raise your children to respect authority, the law, obey and respect their teachers, love Jesus, and then turn around and support a sociopathic, e.g. Benghazi, Vince Foster murderer, selling uranium to the Russians, and the email scandals, serial criminal? I would show them the documented proof, and I stood in amazement when I watched highly intelligent people be reduced to childlike reasoning to explain their very contradictory choice to support Hillary Clinton as they would utter one of Hillary's slogans: "We are stronger together," and Donald Trump hates all women and minorities. When it came to the Clinton supporters, many of them would not look at her obvious corruption in the eye, because to do so would have challenged their worldview. So, cognitive dissonance ruled the day, and half of this country resembled a bunch of intellectual zombies. Interestingly, the very best antidote to avoid falling victim to these psychological ploys is to simply be aware of them. Will the real fake news media please stand up? In regard to the aforementioned psychological tools of enslavement, there are some very obvious and apparent culprits when it comes to deceiving the public with fake news and promoting dependence on a corrupt political system. Here are some of the purveyors of fake news. Here they are: ABC, NBC, CBS, MSNBC, NPR, CNN, Fox, Reuters, Associated Press, any news organization on satellite or cable, AOL, Time Warner, Google, Facebook, Twitter, Gannett Broadcasting, McGraw-Hill, Clear Channel Communications, Premier Networks, The New York Times, The Washington Post, The LA Times, USA Today. All of the above engage in psychological brainwashing of the public, extreme censorship, and the promotion of false beliefs designed to enslave the followers of these organizations. Under our system of law, Donald Trump does not have the power to change this. The reform of the corrupt mainstream media and their fake news can only be changed from the bottom up. The good people of America need to fully engage in a total boycott of these organizations along with their sponsors. Please note that the Common Sense Show no longer uses Google because of its violation of free speech and its antitrust actions against those who bring the public the truth. It is strongly recommended people use Googlefor as their permanent search engine. Drop Google, even it is some kind of mantra by now, already in some people's mind, in interviews, speeches, shows. Search on Google, Google it. I saw on Google, and so on. Additionally, Facebook is also behind this move to censor what you read, hear, and see. Therefore, some recommend you try Scene Life for your social media outlet. They are psychological operations, SIOP, are planned operations to convey selected information and indicators to audiences to influence their emotions, motives, and objective reasoning, and ultimately the behavior of governments, organizations, groups, and individuals. Operations, used on enemies or perceived enemies, but now is freely unleashed through this media, civilian media. Now the enemy is freedom, honesty, and justice, so they use this. Psychological operations is to induce or Reinforce behavior favorable to U.S. objectives. They are an important part of the range of diplomatic, informational, military, and economic activities available to the U.S. They can be utilized during both peacetime and conflict. There are three main types: strategic, operational, and tactical. Strategic SIOP include informational activities conducted by the U.S. government agencies outside of the military arena, though many utilize Department of Defense, DoD, assets. Operational SIOP are conducted across the range of military operations, including during peacetime, in a defined operational area to promote the effectiveness of the Joint Force Commanders, JFC, campaigns and strategies. Tactical SIOP are conducted in the area assigned to a tactical commander across the range of military operations to support the tactical mission against opposing forces. SIOP can encourage popular discontent with the opposition's leadership and, by combining persuasion with a credible threat, degrade an adversary's ability to conduct or sustain military operations. They can also disrupt, confuse, and protract the adversary's decision-making process, undermining command and control. When properly employed, SIOP have the potential to save the lives of friendly or enemy forces by reducing the adversary's will to fight. By lowering the adversary's morale and then its efficiency, SIOP can also discourage aggressive actions by creating disaffection within their ranks, ultimately leading to surrender. The integrated employment of the core capabilities of electronic warfare, computer network operations, psychological operations, military deception, and operations security, in concert with specified supporting and related capabilities, to influence, disrupt, corrupt or usurp adversarial human and automated decision-making while protecting our own. Between 2010 and 2014, SIOP was renamed Military Information Support Operations, MISO, then briefly renamed SIOP in August 2014, only to return to MISO shortly thereafter in 2015. SIOP involves the careful creation and dissemination of a product message. There are three types of products that are used to create these messages. They include white products which are used in overt operations and gray and black products which are used in covert SIOP. White, gray, and black don't refer to the product's content but rather the methods used to carry out the operation. In order for SIOP to be successful, they must be based in reality. All messages must be consistent and must not contradict each other. Any gap between the product and reality will be quickly noticed. A credible truth must be presented which is consistent to all audiences. Primarily it is a component of offensive counter-information but can be used defensively as well. SIOP are used in support of special operations, unconventional warfare, and counterinsurgency, COIN, operations. SIOP can include military operations other than warfare and also include joint operations. They include counter-terrorism operations, peace operations, non-combatant evacuation, enforcement of sanctions and maritime interception operations, strikes and raids, etc. White SIOP X, soldiers with Detachment 1080, 318th Psychological Operations Company distribute newspaper products in the East Rashid region of Baghdad, Iraq, July 11, 2007. White SIOP is attributable to SIOP as a source. White is acknowledged as an official statement or act of the U.S. government, or emanates from a source associated closely enough with the U.S. government to reflect an official viewpoint. The information should be true and factual. It also includes all output identified as coming from U.S. official sources. Authorized to engage in white activity directed at foreign audiences are, the State Department, USIA, the Foreign Operations Administration, a predecessor of the Agency for International Development, the Defense Department and other U.S. government departments and agencies as necessary. Gray SIOP, the source of the gray SIOP product is deliberately ambiguous. The true source, U.S. government, is not revealed to the target audience. The activity engaged in plausibly appears to emanate from a non-official American source, or an indigenous, non-hostile source, or there may be no attribution. Gray is that information whose content is such that the effect will be increased if the hand of the U.S. Government and in some cases any American participation are not revealed. It is simply a means for the U.S. to present viewpoints which are in the interest of U.S. foreign policy, but which will be acceptable or more acceptable to the intended target audience than will an official government statement. Black SYOP. The activity engaged in appears to emanate from a source, government, party, group, organization, person, usually hostile in nature. The interest of the U.S. government is concealed and the U.S. government would deny responsibility. It is best used in support of strategic plans. Covert SYOP is not a function of the U.S. military but instead is used in special operations due to their political sensitivity and need for higher-level compartmentalization. Further, Black SYOP, to be credible, may need to disclose sensitive material, with the damage caused by information disclosure considered to be outweighed by the impact of successful deception. In order to achieve maximum results and to prevent compromise of overt SYOP, overt and covert operations need to be kept separate. Personnel involved in one must not be engaged in the other. Media. SYOP conveys messages via visual, audio, and audiovisual media. Military psychological operations, at the tactical level, are usually delivered by loudspeaker, and face-to-face communication. For more deliberate campaigns, they may use leaflets, radio,